Hi, my name is Joy Gopal Poddar. I am a crime fiction author. I have authored 24 novels, 18 of which have been published. In the next several minutes, I will be talking about a crime thriller I have recently written, which is yet to be published. The name of the book is The Bombing of Hauz Khas Metro Station. The theme of the book is as follows. One morning, Rohit Kapoor took the metro train to work and rode straight into a lethal terrorist blast. His body, along with the bodies of many other victims, was never recovered. Then, a year later, Rohit Kapoor's devastated wife Kavita forced herself to watch a TV documentary about the bombing of Hauz Khas metro station on the first anniversary of the incident. Phone cameras of onlookers had filmed people staggering onto the street from the underground station. Their faces were blackened with char and ash, and one by one they collapsed onto the pavement. And then Kavita saw, on the TV screen, a face that her mind screamed couldn't be real. Did Rohit not die in the metro station bombing? If not, if he was alive, why had he not returned to his family? The rest of the book attempts to answer these two questions with edge of the seat suspense. This is how the story unfolds. Kavita's mind kept throwing up the one thing from that earth shattering day she still had of her husband. Could it provide some clue? She remembered the torn sheet from Rohit's notepad someone had found in Hauz Khas metro station and had later sent her anonymously. Printed at the top of the sheet was the sentence, "From the desk of Rohit Kapoor." The rest of the sheet was covered with Rohit's handwriting. Could this page answer why Rohit had not come back to his wife and children even though he was still alive? Now, 11 months after receiving it in a courier packet from an unknown sender, Kavita still felt Rohit there, in that torn notepad sheet. She read the handwritten words. The script was barely legible. There was a name on the page, Chavi Gupta, and a scribbled landline phone number next to the name. And another number, just below these two, underlined in Rohit's bold, broad strokes, C244. Kavita called on the phone number, and her search for answers led her to a bank with a secret safe deposit locker in the name of her husband, containing a fake passport and a pile of cash. Kavita was shocked. Rohit ran an investment firm for high net worth clients. He was their money manager. But his business was audited by top firms, and as far as she knew, he'd mostly always provided good returns to his investors. It was this reputation for integrity and results that had grown his business. Then what was this? Surely he couldn't have been skimming off some of his clients' profits on the sly, or keeping some of his own earnings hidden from his wife? She ran her eyes down the activity sheet for the locker box. The security deposit box had been newly opened just 6 months before he died. She could see Rohit's signature, plain as day. All the entries had been his. There were a couple of entries shortly after the box was opened. Then, once or twice a month, seemingly like clockwork, almost as if he were preparing for something. Kavita skimmed to the bottom, her gaze locking on the final entry. There was Rohit's signature and the date, April 11, the day of the Hauz Khas metro station bombings. Her eyes fastened on the time. 1:35 p.m. Kavita felt the sweats come over her. That was 4.5 hours after her husband had supposedly died. Kavita turned to Vinod Shunglu for help and guidance. Vinod Shunglu had been Rohit's first boss at the India branch of First American Bank. He had helped put Rohit in business and had acted as the firm's chief trustee. Rohit had named his firm Rohit Kapoor Investments, and through it, he managed a modest-sized investment fund with assets of around 10 crore rupees. The lead investors were First American Bank, thanks mainly to the influence and efforts of Vinod Shunglu, and a few wealthy families Rohit had attracted over the years. Shunglu, who also now ran his own investment firm after retiring from the bank, had advised and guided Kavita with the liquidation of Rohit's firm following his death in the bombings. After hearing of her discovery of the fake passport and cash, Shunglu told Kavita something extraordinary. He told her Rohit had also been managing other accounts, completely separate from Rohit Kapoor Investments. These were offshore accounts in the Bahamas and the Cayman Islands, where SEBI or the Indian accounting and tax laws did not extend. What Shunglu said further devastated Kavita. We're talking big money here, Kavita. A few 100 crore rupees. More perhaps. And I think he lost some of it with his speculations. And I don't think the money Rohit was handling was very clean. Kavita then began to realize the bitter truth. Rohit had led a secret life and he had run away from something. In this difficult time, Kavita found an ally in Detective Superintendent Amit Verma. Kavita Kapoor had first met Detective Superintendent Amit Verma about a week after the Khas bombings. He was sorry for her loss, but still had to meet her in connection with a fatal hit-and-run accident in Dholakwa on the same day as the bombings at Khas. The victim was a car mechanic named Avinash Singh, and in his pocket was a crumpled piece of paper with Rohit's name on it. Did Kavita know of the dead young man? She did not. It was a year after that meeting that Kavita went to meet Amit Verma and hesitantly told him the entire story of her recent discoveries. Amit Verma pressed his lips together after hearing everything and asked, "What do you want me to do?" "I don't know," said Kavita. "I want to know what he's done. I want to see his face and have him tell me the truth. That's all." Amit Verma asked Kavita to carefully go through all of Rohit's personal belongings. She did so, and she came upon a name, Govind Mishra, a junior stock trader newly recruited who had tried to contact her after Rohit's death with what he said was important information. She had passed on the message and the address to Shunglu, but now she felt she should have met the young man herself. He may have had information about Rohit had faked his death and not returned to his family after surviving the bombing at the metro station. She went to Noida, to the address she had discovered, only to find that Govind, too, had been killed in a hit-and-run accident. Now the police official in Amit Verma had all his antennas up. Whatever it was that Rohit Kapoor had been involved in was clearly extremely serious in nature, if possibly two unnatural deaths were somehow linked to him. Amit asked Kavita to once again go through her husband's personal effects and official papers and records, and in doing so, she discovered letters and notes from unknown sources threatening to harm Rohit's family. She also discovered a way of tracking Rohit's present whereabouts. Through his lifelong love for Mustang sports cars and sports car magazines, and his social media interactions with similar minded enthusiasts around the globe. Amit passed on all the information Kavita shared with him to the cybersecurity cell at Delhi Police Headquarters, and Rohit's location was eventually tracked to an island in the Caribbean. His new email address was also discovered. Kavita emailed Rohit and discovered the truth. He was alive and well off financially, but in hiding from some terrible danger and in great shock at being discovered by Kavita. After a bitter exchange of emails, she finally convinced Rohit to let her meet him in his Caribbean hideout, alone. Unknown to her, Kavita Kapoor's arrival in the Caribbean only confirmed what those searching for her husband had already guessed by tracking his bank accounts in the different islands of the Caribbean, which were being operated under some of his known fake identities. Those searching for Rohit were sure that now that Kavita had arrived in the Caribbean, he would show himself soon. Yes, unwittingly, Kavita and Amit led those hunting for Rohit to him. The notepad sheet had been deliberately sent to Kavita by those who had searched the ruins of the Hauz Khas station for clues about Rohit's disappearance, and had found that piece of paper amongst all the debris, but didn't know how to decipher it. The rest of the story deals with the following questions. Did Kavita meet up with Rohit? What was Rohit running away from? Was he a villain or a victim? What was Shunglu's role in the mess Rohit found himself in? Were the two hit-and-run cases accidents or murder? And what was Rohit doing with all that money in his banks? Was it legitimate wealth or illegal gains? And who won in the end? And, above all, was there a secret hidden in Kavita's garage in her bungalow in Delhi's Hauz Khas? The same garage which housed Rohit's beloved Mustang? My latest novel, The Bombing of Hauz Khas Metro Station, leaves none of these questions unanswered. As you already know, I am Joy Gopal Poddar. My friends call me Joy. I am a crime fiction author. Forbes magazine has listed me as a top 100 celebrity author of India. The newspaper Gulf News has labeled me as India's marathon author. The Limca Book of Records has recognized me as India's fastest published crime fiction author. I have held this national record for 6 years, from 2012 to 2017, beating my own previous record each subsequent year. I have written 18 books. I began writing novels 10 years ago when I turned 50. If you take into account my yet to be published books, my manuscript count is 24. My fans have uploaded my biography on Wikipedia. My latest book is called The Bombing of Hauz Khas Metro Station, the story of which you have just heard. It is yet to be published, and the cinematic adaptation representation of this novel rests with Fiction Sutra.